My parents left me a worthless farm while my sister got everything. But that land hid a secret that made me a billionaire and left them speechless. I am Olivia Harrington, the youngest daughter of Richard and Eleanor Harrington, two powerhouses in New York's financial world. My family owns Harrington and Company, a multi-million-dollar investment empire with a portfolio spanning real estate, stocks, and venture capital. To the public, my parents were not only financial masterminds but also highly influential figures, frequently gracing the covers of prestigious business magazines. My sister, Victoria Harrington, is the pride of our family. From a young age, she excelled in every field our parents expected of her. Educated at the most prestigious institutions, she entered the financial world with confidence and sharp strategy. At just 25, Victoria became the youngest executive director of the company, quickly taking control of key investments. With her flawless appearance, exceptional intelligence, and ability to dominate the market, she was seen as the perfect, unblemished gem of the Harrington family. As for me, I never quite fit into their world. Even as a child, I felt like an outsider among numbers, charts, and hours-long shareholder meetings. My parents expected me to follow in their footsteps, but I had no interest in billion-dollar deals or high-pressure negotiations. What fascinated me were projects on sustainable energy and environmental strategy consulting, fields my family had never valued. I pursued a degree in environmental science, determined to find new solutions for efficient resource use. When I turned down an internship at Harrington and Company to work at a renewable energy startup, my parents were utterly disappointed. They never said it outright, but their silence and disapproving looks spoke volumes. At family dinners, I was always on the periphery of conversations, listening to my parents and Victoria discuss profits, mergers, and investment funds, while my ideas on sustainability were dismissed as childish hobbies. Victoria never had to fight for recognition. She was exactly the kind of person our parents had always wanted me to be: strong, sharp, and entirely focused on building the family's wealth. She often looked at me with pity, occasionally making light-hearted remarks about how I was wasting my potential on things that didn't generate profit. I knew that in their eyes, I was just a dreamer with no real impact. They believed I would never build anything of real value, but I had never needed their approval. What I didn't expect was that my life was about to change in ways no one, myself included, could have foreseen. Everything changed with a single phone call on a cold February morning. I was at my office, focused on completing a report on renewable energy storage methods, when my phone vibrated. It was Victoria's number. She rarely called me unless it was something serious. "Olivia?" Her voice came through, lower than usual. "Where are you?" "At the office. What's wrong?" A long silence stretched between us, making my heart tighten. Something wasn't right. "Mom and Dad," she took a deep breath as if trying to steady herself. "They were in a plane crash. No one survived." I froze. Her words hit me like a gust of icy wind, leaving me dizzy. "No, that can't be." My voice trembled. "Their private jet crashed in the Colorado mountains on the way from New York to Los Angeles. The news will break soon." Even though there had always been a distance between my parents and me, hearing they were suddenly gone still left me stunned. They had always been strong, always in control of everything, and now they were gone. 3 days later, their funeral was held at a grand church in Manhattan. Influential figures from the financial world attended, and speeches praising Richard and Eleanor Harrington's remarkable careers filled the air. Meanwhile, I stood quietly at the sidelines, still trying to process that they were truly gone. But before the grief had even settled, an even harsher truth awaited me. 2 weeks after the funeral, I was summoned to the family lawyer's office for the official reading of the will. The office was located in a skyscraper in the heart of Manhattan. When I entered, Victoria was already seated in a leather chair, composed, her gaze filled with confidence. Opposite us sat Albert Sterling, the family's longtime attorney, a man who had witnessed countless deals and negotiations within the Harrington empire. Clearing his throat, he opened a thick file in front of him. "First and foremost, let me express my deepest condolences to both of you," he said in a measured tone before getting straight to the point. "According to the official will of Mr. and Mrs. Harrington." He glanced over his reading glasses. The entirety of Harrington and Company's shares, the real estate properties in New York, Miami, and London, along with all investments and liquid assets, will be transferred to Miss Victoria Harrington. Even though I had anticipated this outcome, hearing those words still felt like a punch to the chest. And as for Miss Olivia Harrington, Mr. Sterling continued, flipping to another page, I waited, a flicker of hope stirring within me. Maybe they had left me a small portion of the estate. Maybe they had thought of me, even just a little. You will inherit an old ranch in rural Texas, formerly owned by your grandfather, Howard Harrington. An eerie silence filled the room. I blinked. A ranch in Texas? Victoria let out a sharp laugh, making no effort to conceal her disdain. Well, isn't that interesting? She looked at me, a smirk curling her lips. Maybe Mom and Dad thought you'd be better suited to tending livestock than running a financial empire. My hands clenched under the table. I looked up at Mr. Sterling, trying to keep my voice steady. Is that all? No company shares, no bank accounts, no investments? Mr. Sterling skimmed through the documents before nodding. The Harrington Ranch, spanning over 150 acres, along with some related legal paperwork. He slid an envelope toward me. Nothing else. Victoria crossed her arms, her eyes glinting with triumph. Well, there you have it, Olivia. If you want to live like a real farmer, be my guest. But if you ever need financial assistance, I'd be happy to help. With a reasonable interest rate, of course. I stared at the envelope in front of me, fighting to suppress the emotions rising inside me. My parents had truly believed I was incapable of achieving anything. When I left the office, all I had in my possession was an old key, a deed to an abandoned ranch in the middle of the Texas desert. No shares, no valuable assets, no place in the company, just a piece of land my father had once deemed worthless, a place no one in the family had ever spoken of. But what unsettled me the most wasn't the unfairness of the will. It was the real reason behind it. Why had they left me that ranch? Was it their way of quietly cutting me out of the family, or was there something more that I didn't know? As I stepped out of the skyscraper, I looked up at Manhattan's gray sky, a new determination brewing inside me. If this was all they had left me, then I would find out why. 3 days later, I booked a flight to Texas. After a 3-hour flight and an additional 2-hour drive through dusty Texas roads, I finally arrived at Harrington Ranch. A faded wooden sign with barely legible letters stood at the entrance. Beyond it stretched an expanse of land, vast and endless dry fields, scattered cacti, and an old 2-story wooden house standing alone in the arid landscape. I stepped out of the car, glancing around. There was no sign of life, only the wind whistling through the barren trees. This was what my parents had left me. I took a deep breath and walked toward the main house. The wooden door creaked as I pushed it open, revealing a space covered in dust and the scent of aged timber. The interior was simple, seemingly untouched for years, but strangely, everything remained intact, as if its owner had only just left. As I walked down the hallway, a series of old photographs on the wall caught my attention. One in particular made me stop, a black and white picture of my grandfather, Howard Harrington, standing beside a large building that looked like a storage facility or a workshop. I didn't know much about my grandfather. Growing up, I had only heard my father speak of him with disappointment. Howard had once been an investor, but according to my father, he had wasted the last years of his life chasing some foolish dream out here on this ranch. And then it struck me. If my father thought this place was worthless, why hadn't he sold it? I picked up the photograph, examining it more closely. My grandfather's eyes gleamed with pride, but what truly caught my attention was the small inscription at the bottom, to Harrington Experimental Facility, 1987 AE. An experimental facility? Here, on this ranch? I stepped outside, scanning my surroundings. In the picture, behind my grandfather stood a large metal structure. I walked around the property, searching for anything similar, and then I saw it. About 200 meters from the main house, amidst the dry grass fields, stood a large metal warehouse with a heavy door. The marks of time were evident, peeling paint, rust spreading across its surface, and an old padlock dangling from the handle. Why would a warehouse in an abandoned ranch need to be locked? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key the lawyer had given me. Could this be the key to the warehouse? I slid it into the lock and turned it gently. A soft click echoed in the still air. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit space inside. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating rows of dust-covered wooden shelves, large metal containers, and a desk tucked into the corner of the warehouse. On the desk, a stack of yellowed papers lay untouched. I stepped inside, running my fingers along the wooden surface. A worn leather notebook sat atop the pile, its cracked cover bearing a handwritten title, The Harrington Projecta. My heartbeat quickened as I flipped through the first few pages. Inside were detailed notes on a project my grandfather had worked on, geological surveys, complex calculations, and hand-drawn diagrams mapping out layers of rock and soil. One particular word appeared repeatedly throughout the pages: lithium. I held my breath. Lithium, a crucial element in the rechargeable battery industry, renewable energy, and electric vehicles, one of the most valuable metals of the 21st century. Had my grandfather been researching lithium? I quickly sifted through the rest of the documents. A detailed map of the ranch surfaced, with a specific area circled in red. Below it, my grandfather had written, "By high reserve, significant potential, absolute confidentiality." My throat went dry. My grandfather had discovered a lithium deposit right beneath this ranch, and my father, the man who had always dismissed this place as worthless, had likely never realized its true value. I took a deep breath, looking around the warehouse. This wasn't just a storage space. It was where my grandfather had hidden one of the most significant discoveries of his life. But a bigger question loomed in my mind. If my grandfather knew about this, why did he keep it a secret? Why didn't he extract it? And most importantly, did anyone else know about it? A sense of unease crept over me. I gazed toward the horizon, where the sun was slowly sinking behind the distant mountains. Maybe I had just uncovered a secret no one wanted me to know, and I wasn't sure if that was a good thing. I sat on an old wooden chair inside the warehouse, my hands trembling slightly as I flipped through my grandfather's documents. A lithium deposit. I had read about the surge in the rechargeable battery and renewable energy markets. Lithium was essential for electric vehicles, energy storage systems, and even the electronic devices we used every day. Its value had skyrocketed over the past decade, and major corporations around the world were scrambling to secure mining rights. My grandfather had known about this decades ago, but the biggest question remained: why didn't he mine it? I sat in silence, thinking. Maybe he knew he couldn't fight my father, a man who prioritized short-term profits over investing in something no one cared about back then. Maybe he feared that if the information got out, the land would be swallowed up by powerful corporations. Whatever the reason, one thing was undeniable now: this was my opportunity. I didn't have time to hesitate. If I didn't act fast, someone else would uncover this secret before me. 3 days later, I left Texas and returned to New York. This time, I no longer felt lost among the towering skyscrapers or the bustling streets. I had a plan, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. The first call I made was to Ethan Carter, a lawyer specializing in intellectual property and corporate law. I had met Ethan a few years ago while working on a renewable energy project. He was meticulous, discreet, and incredibly sharp, exactly the kind of person I needed in this situation. When I explained what I had found, Ethan didn't bother to hide his astonishment. "Olivia, if what you're saying is true, then this could be one of the largest lithium deposits in the U.S. I nodded. "And I need to protect it before anyone else finds out." Ethan agreed immediately. He suggested establishing a new company, completely detached from the Harrington name, to hold the patents and extraction rights. Then he got to work filing intellectual property claims related to my grandfather's extraction method, ensuring that no one could use the technology without my permission. The second call was to Rachel Monroe, a geologist I had worked with on a renewable resource study. If anyone could accurately assess the lithium reserves beneath my ranch, it was Rachel. "I need you to fly to Texas immediately," I said over the phone. "What's going on? You'll understand when you get here." 3 days later, Rachel arrived at the ranch with a team of specialized equipment. We spent 2 days surveying the area, collecting soil samples, and taking precise measurements. When Rachel returned with the results, I saw the excitement in her eyes. "Olivia, you don't just have a lithium deposit. You have one of the richest lithium reserves I've ever seen." I held my breath. If you mine it correctly, this could become a strategic supply source for the entire clean energy industry. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but hearing this confirmation sent a surge of adrenaline through me. I was holding an opportunity that could change the game, but I couldn't do this alone. Mining lithium wasn't a simple task. I needed significant investment to turn this idea into reality, and I knew exactly who could help me: Nathan Pierce. Nathan was a venture capitalist known for bold deals in the green technology sector. I had met him a few years ago at a renewable energy conference, and I knew he was always looking for groundbreaking opportunities. I arranged a private meeting at a luxury hotel in New York. As I laid out what I had discovered, Nathan leaned back in his chair, silent for a long moment. "Olivia, if these numbers are accurate, you're sitting on a multi-billion-dollar asset." I nodded. "But the real question is, what do you plan to do with it?" I took a deep breath, holding his gaze. "I don't want to sell it to a major corporation just so they can drain it dry and destroy the environment," I said. "I want to do it the right way. I want to develop the sustainable extraction technology my grandfather was researching, and I need funding to get started." Nathan studied me for a moment before a slow smile spread across his face. "All right, Olivia. I'll invest $150 million, but I want you to guarantee that you maintain full control. If you let anyone else interfere, you'll lose everything." I clenched my fists. "You have my word." A few weeks later, Harrington Lithium Solutions was officially born, a completely new company with no ties to the Harrington family, created to oversee the lithium mining operation in Texas. I was ready. I knew that Victoria and my family would soon figure out what was happening, but this time I was no longer the girl they had dismissed. This time, I was the one in control. 3 months after Harrington Lithium Solutions launched, the renewable energy market had already started paying attention to the name. The first contracts were signed with leading technology companies in the rechargeable battery and electric vehicle sectors. But the real breakthrough came when we secured a lithium supply agreement with Tesla and a major renewable battery manufacturing conglomerate. In just 6 months, the company's valuation skyrocketed to over $1.2 billion. The media called us the game changer in clean energy. Financial news outlets began reporting on an unknown company that had suddenly become a critical player in the global lithium supply chain. But the most significant part? No one knew who was really behind it. From the very beginning, I had meticulously hidden my identity. Harrington Lithium Solutions didn't carry the Harrington name. It was registered under a shell corporation, keeping it far from any association with my family. But secrets can't stay hidden forever. One morning, as I sat in my office reviewing the latest geological report, my phone rang. Victoria Harrington. I stared at the name on the screen, fully aware that the storm I had been preparing for was finally here. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "Olivia," her voice came through, slow and deliberate. "I need to confirm something." I smiled, keeping my tone calm. "What is it?" "Harrington Lithium Solutions, is that your company?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "Why would you think that?" Victoria let out a quiet scoff. "I asked around. This company appeared out of nowhere, yet it has massive funding and controls one of the richest lithium reserves in the U.S., and, more importantly, it's operating on land that belongs to you." I didn't respond. "Did you go behind all of our backs?" Her voice carried suspicion. "Did you find something that Mom and Dad never knew about?" I remained steady. "And if I did?" Victoria was silent for a long moment, before exhaling a soft laugh. "You're smarter than I thought, Olivia." I could picture her sitting somewhere in the Harrington and Company headquarters, fingers laced together, trying to keep her composure while internally seething. "I want to meet," Victoria said. "We should discuss a partnership." I chuckled. "Are you sure this is a partnership offer or just a way for you to take control?" "Don't be naive, Olivia." Her voice sharpened. "I have resources, connections, influence. If you let me in, Harrington Lithium Solutions could become an empire. If not," I tilted my head. "If not, what? I will find a way to take back what belongs to this family." I had always known Victoria wouldn't back down easily. Just 1 week after that phone call, Harrington and Company officially filed a lawsuit against me. The claim, the Harrington family declared that all assets belonging to my grandfather were part of the family estate and should be under the control of the corporation. What did they want? They wanted me to hand over the lithium mining rights to Harrington and Company and merge my company into their conglomerate. I laughed when I read the lawsuit. Did they really think I would give up so easily? I had anticipated this from the very beginning. When I founded the company, I had Ethan Carter, my intellectual property attorney, construct an airtight legal structure. Every land ownership record was fully legalized under my name. All lithium extraction patents were registered under an anonymous trust. Harrington Lithium Solutions had zero legal ties to the Harrington family. When my legal team responded to Harrington and Company, they had absolutely no legal grounds to win the case. Victoria and the board had moved too late, and I knew it was driving them insane. After 4 weeks of intense legal battles, the court ultimately dismissed my family's lawsuit. I had won. Harrington Lithium Solutions remained entirely mine. But I knew this was only the beginning. Victoria wasn't going to give up that easily. I could picture her sitting in her office, glaring angrily at the headlines in the news. Why a mysterious startup is threatening the dominance of the lithium industry. Harrington and Company fails to secure control over one of the largest lithium mines in the U.S. And now she knew I was no longer the insignificant girl they once dismissed, and I was certain Victoria would find another way to take me down. But this time, I was ready. 2 months after my family lost the lawsuit, I heard that Victoria was in serious financial trouble. Insiders in the investment world whispered about her reckless decisions. After failing to seize control of Harrington Lithium Solutions, Victoria had placed massive bets on real estate ventures and a major investment in traditional oil energy, a sector steadily losing ground to renewable energy. Things only worsened when the real estate market crashed and the oil industry suffered under new energy policies. What once seemed like highly profitable investments had turned into financial dead weight. And then the unthinkable happened. Victoria was forced to sell her Manhattan penthouse to stay afloat, the same lavish penthouse where she had hosted elite financiers, where private investor meetings had taken place, and which had stood as a symbol of her power. Now she had to put it on the market. But what Victoria didn't know was that I had already moved ahead of her. I had anticipated this the moment I saw cracks forming in her investment portfolio. Through one of my shell companies, an anonymous investment fund I had established while building Harrington Lithium Solutions, I quietly entered the bidding war for the penthouse, and, just as I expected, I acquired it for less than half its original value. No one, not even Victoria, knew that the new owner was me. One late afternoon, my phone rang. "Victoria," I picked up, keeping my voice composed. "What do you need, Victoria?" There was a brief hesitation on the other end, a rare thing for her, but she quickly regained her composure. "Olivia, I know you're the one who bought my penthouse." I smirked faster than I expected. "Oh?" I replied, feigning indifference. "Would you be willing to sell it back to me?" Victoria asked, her tone steady, but I could hear the hint of desperation underneath. "I just need a little more time to restructure my finances. I'll pay full market value." I glanced out my office window, savoring this moment. The moment when my sister, the same woman who had mocked me, dismissed me, and believed I would never amount to anything, was now asking me for help. I took a slow breath before responding. "Victoria, do you remember when we were in the lawyer's office?" Silence. "You told me that if I ever needed financial help, you'd be happy to assist, with a reasonable interest rate." I paused, letting my words sink in. "Do you remember that?" I asked softly. A long pause, then her voice returned, quieter now but still trying to maintain control. "So, you're refusing?" I smiled, relishing the sweet victory. "No, Victoria, I'm just reminding you that the world moves fast." Then I hung up. After losing the penthouse, Victoria continued to struggle with her failing investments. Harrington and Company gradually fell into crisis. The meteoric rise of Harrington Lithium Solutions caused major investors to turn away from Victoria's company. They no longer had faith in real estate and oil. Instead, they poured their capital into clean energy, where I was leading the charge. In less than a year, Victoria, once the head of a financial empire, was forced to sell off more assets just to maintain cash flow. And me? Harrington Lithium Solutions was becoming a dominant force in the lithium mining industry. Not only had I maintained full control, But I had also expanded operations, developed new technologies, and secured even more strategic contracts. I didn't need ruthless revenge. My success was the clearest answer. One winter evening, as I sat in the penthouse that had once belonged to Victoria, I received a message from her. "He was wrong, but you've changed a lot too, Olivia. If you ever want to talk, I'm still your sister." I stared at the screen for a long time. A part of me wanted to respond, but another part knew that we were no longer the sisters we used to be. I had spent my whole life seeking validation from my family, but now I realized I didn't need it anymore. I set my phone down, stood up, poured myself a glass of water, and gazed out of the massive window. New York City still shined as brightly as ever, but this time, I was no longer standing in the shadows. I stood by the window of my new penthouse, overlooking the dazzling lights of New York City. The glow of the skyscrapers reflected off the glass, reminding me of the years I once felt lost in this place. But now, everything had changed. I was no longer the girl my family dismissed, the one excluded from important conversations, the one they deemed worthless in their world. I had built my own empire, and no one could take that away from me. The phone on my desk vibrated, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. An email from my old high school with the subject line, "A special invitation, guest speaker for this year's graduation ceremony." I raised an eyebrow and opened the email. "Oh dear Olivia, I am Principal Sullivan, currently organizing this year's graduation ceremony. We would love to invite one of our most outstanding alumni to return as our guest speaker. This year's theme is finding value in what's overlooked. We believe your story will inspire many students, especially those who feel underestimated or unrecognized. We hope you can attend. Sincerely, Principal Sullivan. Dato." I stared at the screen. Finding value in what's overlooked. I let out a quiet laugh, a theme perfectly aligned with my story. Because I had been overlooked, I had been underestimated by my family, dismissed as an outsider. And yet, from the land they had abandoned, I built a billion-dollar company, revolutionized the lithium industry, and became an unshakable force in the clean energy revolution. I no longer needed my family's validation. My success spoke for itself. 2 weeks later, I stood on the stage at my old high school's graduation ceremony. Hundreds of students sat below, eagerly waiting. Some of my former teachers were also present, a few of them recognizing me and nodding in acknowledgement. I stepped up to the podium, feeling the weight of every gaze in the auditorium. Taking a deep breath, I began. "Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Harrington, and many years ago I was sitting exactly where you are now." A few murmurs spread through the crowd. Perhaps some students had heard my name in the news. When I was a student here, I believed that in order to succeed, I had to follow the path that others had set for me. I thought that if I didn't fit their definition of success, I would never achieve anything meaningful. But I was wrong. The room fell silent. I continued, my voice growing stronger. I was underestimated. My family owned a major financial empire, and they believed that if I didn't follow their path, I would never accomplish anything significant. When my parents passed away, my sister inherited everything. And me? I paused, scanning the audience. They left me an old ranch in the middle of the Texas desert. A few students chuckled, while others widened their eyes in surprise. They thought it was worthless. They believed I could do nothing with it. But they were wrong. I let my words sink in before continuing. I refused to let others decide my worth. Instead of complaining, I chose to look deeper into what I had been given, and I discovered it wasn't worthless at all. I locked eyes with the front row, where my former teacher sat, listening intently. As it turned out, the land they dismissed as useless contained one of the richest lithium reserves in the U.S. Because of that, I built a billion-dollar clean energy company, becoming a key supplier for some of the biggest technology firms in the world. I noticed a few students gasp in shock, while others whispered excitedly to each other. "Why am I telling you this?" I asked. "I'm sharing my story so you understand that your worth is not determined by others. Even if you feel overlooked, even if you believe you're not good enough, even if your path looks different from everyone else's, don't ever let anyone convince you that you can't achieve something great. Sometimes the things that seem worthless hold treasures only you can see." I scanned the audience, catching the glimmer of inspiration in some students' eyes. Maybe one of them felt overlooked, just like I once did, and maybe someday they would find their own lithium mine. I took a deep breath, closing my speech. And finally, if anyone has ever told you that you can't do something great, remember this: success is the clearest answer. The auditorium erupted in applause. I smiled and stepped off the stage. Today, I didn't need my family's validation because I had validated myself. Olivia Harrington's story is not just a personal journey, it's a profound lesson in self-worth and perseverance. In life, many of us have been underestimated, dismissed, or pushed aside because we didn't fit society's conventional definition of success. But success is not determined by others. It belongs to those who dare to see opportunity in what's been overlooked, believe in their own potential, and relentlessly pursue their goals. In the end, the most important validation doesn't come from others. It comes from within.